Welcome to Lost Hope, a Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell podcast.
Or Norrell. Turns out Norrell is okay.
My name's Bubba. With me, as always, is
Catfish.
Catfish. We just watched Chapter 4, All the Mirrors of the World.
Ooh.
The 4th episode. We are more than halfway through now.
Well, this was Hump episode.
It sure was. So, Catfish, let's get right to it. What is your rating out of 10 for this Chapter 4?
I'm gonna go about as high as I possibly could, and that is 9.5 chestnuts in a blunderbuss. 9.5 chestnuts stuffed into a blunderbuss.
You must have loved this episode. Holy smokes.
I did. I dearly wish that I could watch the rest of this show right flipping now.
Well, let me tell you, Catfish, spoiler alert, those next two are going to make you, Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 are also going to be tough. You know what, Catfish? I'm not going to go that high, but I'm giving this a 9, the high equal I've given it.
That's as high as you've given anything in your entire life.
I know. I'm giving this a 9, what I like to call triple N's out of 10.
Triple N's?
Yeah. Triple N stands for Not Now, Napoleon. Everything was going so good, and sure enough, who comes back?
There we are. We heard and we knew it was going to be bad.
Bad trouble right there. Now, we both love this episode. A lot of our listeners tweeted in and said they love the episode.
I got super excited because, of course, I was away and came back, and I kept on seeing all our listeners were not only excited about the episode and giving it high ratings, but they were on tenterhooks waiting for us to bring it home to them.
I know. Well, some people, though, weren't in love with this episode.
Who dat?
The AV Club, that website that reviews television episodes, they were a bit down on this. And I saw a tweet from somebody, and this person, the tweet said, for a show about magicians, there's very little magic in it. And I was thinking, Catfish, can you name the last time that Mr. Norrell did any magic on the show?
God. Does only respectable magic count? Because if it's only respectable magic, I don't know if I've ever seen him do any. I mean, I presume the statues were respectable, but Lady Pole was not respectable magic.
Wasn't. Maybe, I think I believe the answer is the infamous sea beacons. Are those done yet?
Well, for purposes of the book, they are.
Oh, those are
for
done.
Purposes of the book.
Oh, that's true.
Well, you know what? I guess the people are having the problems that I had with the book, where I wanted there to be more action in the book, but I'm not minding it here. Oh, my goodness, obviously not.
One of our first guests on the podcast was screenwriter Peter Harness, and he called this episode the one he's most proud of the 7. He was really proud of this episode.
Wow, okay, great. Well, we agree.
We do agree. Now, Catfish, we're going to have a special guest on the podcast today, somebody I like to call Double C.
Double C?
Yes, our commercial commentator. Everybody throughout the world kind of gets blown away that in America we have to stop the action and cut to commercials. So we're going to have a special commercial commentator on the show. And do you want to bring her in?
I do, actually. Let me introduce her. This is every year we have Uncle Catfish Camp.
Oh, we do.
And so we have my niece, who her name is Little Murray. That's her podcast name, Little Murray. And so she'll be commenting on the commercials. Little Murray, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Catfish and Bubba. It's nice to be here.
Thank
you're
you.
Damn right it is nice to be here.
Let me ask you this. Your special focus was the commercials, but you did watch the show. Even though you hadn't seen the 3 previous episodes, did it look interesting? Did it look boring? Give us a niece perspective.
Well, my Uncle Catfish here, he gave me a very lovely recap, so I kind of understood what was going on.
Okay.
So I understood the drama going on there with Mrs. Pole and everything, and excuse me, Lady Pole. And
get it right, Double C.
I liked the episode. It was very intriguing, especially for a person my age.
Oh, great.
All right, and she's actually 23. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Now, Catfish, back in Lost Hope, in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I was wondering if I should start with a bit of magic myself, Catfish.
Ooh, Well, what magic do you have for us?
I thought I would look into the future.
Okay.
So I mentioned this is the week of July 5th, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would you like to look into the future and get it?
Well, how far are we looking? Are we looking like the 7th, the 8th?
I'm gonna look very into the future. So listeners, if you're listening to this podcast in 2016 or 2017 or 2018, I was thinking, who knows when people we're watching this week to week, but most listeners, I think, are going to be able to watch this, one after the other, just bam, 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 through all 7. So
now, you think it's worthwhile for them to stop after number 1? They should stop and then listen to 2 hours of us going on about it. They can really extend their enjoyment of it.
So listeners in 2016, 2017, and beyond, tweet at us and tell us what the future's like, okay? You can tweet at me. My name's Bubba. You can reach me on Twitter or whatever next app is hot,
right?
At Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM, at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And you can reach me on Twitter at CJGman67. I'm hoping for when the next Gen app comes out, I'll come up with something better.
Okay.
But the one thing that I'm hoping by 2018?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, that BBC or BBC America sends us some swag to give out to our listeners. I've given up on that.
We have after we review this episode, I'm going to run down all the people we're putting in the respectable magicians camps. That's our Twitter followers who are trying to get us some gifts to give to them from BBC America, and BBC America's being so scroogey with their
they're
stingy.
They're being. I think like Drawlight, they've got some debts to pay.
Okay, when you try to reach us on Twitter, folks, please include the hashtag Lost Hope Podcast. On previous podcasts, I said, or just hashtag Lost Hope. But if you look at Twitter with hashtag Lost Hope, there's some very depressing tweets. And so Lost Hope Podcast, because reading those, I kind of,
nice,
not as fun.
Nice. Yes, but Bubba slipped into a slight lady poll period this week. So yes, please hashtag Lost Hope Podcast.
Okay. Also, Catfish, before we break down this episode, so last week I was like, are you on Team Strange or Team Norrell? And so this week, let's go through the actors. Are you on Team Eddie Marsan or Team Bertie Carvel? So Carvel is Strange and Eddie Marsan's Norrell. To be completely honest, this is a bit unfair because they're both doing incredible jobs.
Absolutely,
don't you think?
absolutely.
Really? But which team are you on actors? And specifically, I have one for this episode. I'll go first because it is so tough. They're both so great.
They're amazing.
And even though they're both amazing, Eddie Marsan, he has 2 moments. The first moment is hilarious nonverbal comedy when he checks out Strange's medals, and then he looks at his own. And that was Chuck Brown, Charles Brown, Charlie Brown moment. It was so funny.
3-1. I think that was the count.
It was hilarious. Great there. And also, though, later in the episode, his heartbreak over being, he's such a lonely man, and he's trying to do anything to get Strange back on his side. And his heartbreak, we'll be a partnership. I'll let you have every book in the library.
Right. Well, what's also...
I thought he was great in that. So they're both great, but...
What makes that even more poignant is later on, and it's smart the way they did this.
Yeah.
Later on in the episode, we find out that wasn't what he was supposed to say to Strange at all, and that basically he had just totally buckled. Yeah,
because he's going to lose the only person he can talk to magic about, quote unquote, his only friend. Remember, when Strange looked in the mirror, it's like, what is my enemy doing presently? He saw Norrell, but the gentleman with thistle-down hair back in episode 1. The gentleman referred, where's the other magician? And Norrell's like, there is no other magician. And the thistle-down hair said, oh, he is your greatest friend. And Norrell, of course, joked, I had no friends. But this is kind
Although, if he was paying attention to what Vincula said, he should have known that things were not going to go well.
2 and 2 there.
I think he was a little... I think he might have been too concerned about his drawers being wet by that point to pay attention to exactly what Vincula was saying. All right, well... I thought that was a beautiful moment as well.
Right.
So then I'm just going to have to take the other side of it because I think, because again, I agree that both actors are doing great. I really think that when, as Strange, he is kind of, he's apologizing to his wife and he sort of has come to that moment of like, yes.
It was a very believable fight, when he and Arabella had to have it out. So, you know what, there's no right or wrong side in this. They're both
except
great
for my
actors.
side.
The wrong side. Thanks for pointing that out, Catfish. Listeners, if you're our Irish listeners on the Emerald Isle or our friends in the UK, I'm coming to Ireland the first week of August as a dumb
American. Use a place to stay.
As a dumb American, I don't know what to do or say. So please tweet at me, Bubba, at Fit and Trim, and tell me, have a meetup. Show me all the magical places, the 4-leaf clovers.
And you should tell them you can do several things in a day. If we described that one day we had in Paris to our listeners, they would not believe the number of things.
Oh, my Lord.
That's right. Some people can take days to do the Louvre.
Pass, right.
We did Louvre and the d'Orsay in the same day.
And the Arc de Triomphe.
Exactly.
And, oh my God! And Notre Dame. Oh boy, that was
we
tough,
did it.
tough.
We did it the American way.
We sure did. You're on a budget. All right, let's get to this episode. This is an episode. For me, I really needed the closed caption to get everything because it is stuffed with stuff. And we'll start with our first footnote. Catfish. This series began in 1806, even though I think according to the books it was January of 1807.
Got it.
What year does this episode end in? Did you catch?
I did not catch it, but I'm going to guess 1814.
Very close, 1815. It's on the spine of LaSalle's book. It says 1815, and of course that's when Napoleon returned is 1815. So we have gone through close to 8.5 years in 4 episodes. Let's do it.
It does not seem like it,
No,
though.
it does not. The episode entitled All the Mirrors of the World, and of course, what is the very first shot in the episode but a reflection in a mirror as the men from the street pull in Lady Pole, and she is just completely nuts, huh?
And unhinged.
Oh, yeah. And you don't blame her, but, boy, I didn't like that Norrell yelled at her. He said, I could have you hanged. I should have you hanged. Oy. And admittedly, she tried to kill him with a gun, but still.
Yeah, no, he doesn't take responsibility for anything.
No.
And it is not until that moment that you mentioned where he's clearly just so sad and he's willing to give up everything to keep Strange on his side.
Oh, yeah.
That he still doesn't fess up to Strange about what he did.
No. And don't you think, I want to talk about this later, but not fessing up, I think, is Norrell's biggest mistake of everything.
I agree.
All right, so...
I agree, because if he said, look, this is what I did, and this is the trouble that I had wrought, then Strange would be on his side.
Right. But he just couldn't, he's so against
He can't. He feels so much shame about it.
And Norrell is just terrible. He has his things out of order. He says, my reputation has been ruined, and by the way, my servant has been shot.
Yeah. Well, I was curious about this too.
Yeah.
Why Lady Pole, I guess most people don't know that she's crazy, and so he thinks that it would look bad on him because she shot at him.
Right.
Because if people knew she was crazy, no one would blame him. No one would say it was against him.
Right. But I think it is known that he brought her back to life, and so people would say, oh, his creation, it's almost like Frankenstein's monster. That would shame him. And so
they do something, I've never thought about it with my ladies, but, this might be the second week in a row we're bringing up Cosby, so maybe we just shouldn't.
You mean when they drug poor Lady Pole?
I know.
So this scene here, were you shocked that Childermass survived after seeing it last week? Because it looked fatal last week.
It looked really bad. And then, of course, when he went into the to the world of he went into the roads behind. I thought he was gone for sure. Now he has what I think is he's got a complex arc in this
he does.
In this episode.
Yeah.
And because we'll get to it later, but I believe that he is ready to do his own investigations.
Oh yeah.
But he's going to find it a hard time doing it because he's associated with Norrell.
We always talk about the pairs in this show, and it's Childermass is obviously a free agent, pretty much.
At this point, yeah, he's very upset.
I liked when they pulled the bullet out of him that in the kind of dreamscape where he saw a raven fly out of the hole.
Yeah, that was cool.
And just as a complete silly footnote, this Dreamland was filmed in Goredale Scar in Yorkshire. And how do I know this?
How do you know
this is a stupid sidetrack. I shouldn't go on. But many years ago, Catfish and we went and saw this great film called Tristram Shandy. Mork was with us. And while the film was absolutely hilarious, The big thing for me was we saw Eric Idle in the audience.
He was. It was great.
We're in L.A. I don't get starstruck, but it's Eric Idle of Monty Python. He was in the audience. The film was very hilarious, and it starred Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. And so I've had this thing on my DVR for months, this other thing they've done called The Trip. And I was
which I haven't seen, which I hear is great. I hear their second one not so good.
It's pretty good. It's not as good as Tristram Shandy. It's pretty good. But so anyway, like last weekend, I was like, I'm finally going to get this thing off the DVR. I'm going to watch The Trip. And sure enough, they go hiking here in the dreamscape where Childermass was at Gordale Scar in Yorkshire.
Now, some of our listeners might be interested to know that the reason you need to get things off your DVR is because you need to have lots of space for past episodes of Hee Haw.
Yeah, I'll edit that out of the podcast.
There's a reason you're called Bubba.
All right, so folks, I don't like to foreshadow too much, but there's a great shot in here, an evocative shot of Childermass. When they pulled the bullet out, his cards of Marseille had fallen on the floor, and we see blood dripping on the Hanged Men card. Ooh. So I'm just saying it now, folks. After you watch this whole thing, you can go back to episode 1 and see all the foreshadowing. This thing, they are laying it all. Go listen to those prophecies again. They are laying it all out. So Childermass has survived, and we pick up a couple days later where finally he wakes up, and, who do you want there? A lovely nurse? Nah. You want Mr. Norrell to chew you out when you wake up out of your...
Yeah, what a dick.
Hey, now.
What a dick. Why are you doing this? You know what? Again, my every answer would have been, do you remember when I took a bullet for you?
That was like 4 days ago. I've had to do all this stuff by myself. You've been no help while you've been sleeping, Childermass.
Oh, man.
So, Childermass, he's explaining why he did this spell.
Well, what's nice is we know that the hat is not just a studying hat, it's also a scolding hat. I put my scolding hat on.
He's got the fez on. Mr. Norrell has the scolding fez on to tell him, to chew him out.
So what's interesting is, now this is the first time we've seen Childermass has aided him. He's pushed him. He's been his... I wouldn't say he's confidant because he doesn't really confide in him, but he's been all things to Mr. Norrell, and now he's starting to question him.
Yeah, well, he wants to know. He's like, hey, Lady Pole had all this magic around her, and Mr. Norrell is deflecting, denying. Mm-hmm. He's like, that was my magic you felt on her. Yeah, when I brought her back, there might have been one or two small irregularities that caused her to go a bit nutso. But an important bit of kind of plot laying out here, Norrell is worried that she'll be put in the insane asylum Bedlam, where people would see her. Once again, it would reflect poorly on him because he brought her back to life. And Childermass says he'll take care of her, a.k.a. Childermass decides to send her to Secundus and Honeyfoot. Why do you think he does that?
This is interesting because, of course, I didn't expect him to. First of all, Secundus and Honeyfoot, I didn't know that they were going to turn this joint into a madhouse.
Hey,
they've got no training in it whatsoever.
Nah. Don't even seem to be able to push a wheelchair too well, do they?
You know what? I have to say this: they're nice people.
Oh yeah,
they seem very caring. And by the way, at this new joint, the staff to patient ratio is outstanding. I don't think it's that high at Promises in Malibu.
Double for every patient.
You'll
have two full-time staff watching over you.
That's right, exactly. Now, this is curious because when he said, I'll take care of her, I thought he was so upset with her that he thought he meant, I will take care of her.
Okay.
But it's smart because he's right away realized, hey, I'm not going to get any info out of Norrell.
No.
So
I got to find out what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we jump from that to the strange house, and Arabella is getting her husband ready to meet the King of England. Arabella mentions a thing which I think is really fascinating. She says, the gentleman at Sir Walter's house said that once you've tasted war, you are sure to be bored at home. And of course, who's the gentleman who said that to Arabella? The gentleman with thistle-down hair. So she remembers those terrible things, or this terrible guy that she sees. And this is a good setup of just reintroducing that he's back from the war, and they are in love. This is a fully healthy relationship.
Absolutely. It's very cute. And she wants him to look good. She wants him to look his best.
Right. Listen, if your man's going to go meet the king, slob, dress up one time.
Right? She's pinning his medals on him. Which the minute I saw them, I thought, oh yeah, this is not going to be good.
No,
I didn't realize that Strange was that Norrell was going to have one. I guess that was for the beacons.
Yeah, the infamous beacons.
That's the beacon medal. Oh. This one is for when I brought back guys from the dead.
Right.
This one is from when I made the road.
Right.
And this one is from I actually did do the wash. I washed clothes. Okay, I did it. I washed clothes. Everyone was asking me. I did it.
Okay, and so this leads to a loving moment, but this loving moment between the husband and wife makes Strange late to see the king, and his excuse, I got stuck behind a guy driving cows. He's like, I wasn't having fun time with my wife. No, I'm stuck behind.
But Norrell repeats what he'd said before, which is, there's no way to cure madness.
Ay.
Now, so you think... we've seen someone come back from dead, so we think that do you think there is no way to cure madness, or the way to cure madness is, again, to call on fairies? You think they can cure madness?
I would imagine that, once again, it would require the magic that's not respectable. It would require, if not a full calling a fairy, you would be doing things like, using blood and...
Well, I just wonder, do the fairies have only two types of magic? One, they bring back someone from the dead, and then they're crazy. Or they stop someone from being crazy by making them dead.
Then they kill them. Right. Good work, fairies. So
we got two options. We got Plan A and Plan B.
So, Catfish, did you like that on the 4th of July weekend here in America, they showed the king that George Washington beat and defeated, King George III?
Yeah, suck it, BBC.
Poor the king is not doing too well. He's blind. Do eyes really go that color when you're blind? Youch.
I think they can if you have cataracts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And then he's also, his harpsichord playing, kind of eerie and creepy.
Yeah, exactly. And they need to get him for like every horror movie.
Back at the Strange house, Lady Strange comes home from a luncheon, and she's very upset because this woman at this luncheon had said that, hey, she was Jonathan Strange's pupil.
Right.
And she talks to her...
And again, this is one of those things that I really like about this. We're like, wait, what's going on here?
She's setting up Mrs. Gray.
Miss Gray, we're like, is that really something that's hidden?
Right.
And this pays off really well.
And at the same time, though, she's prying for information about, hey, did you hear who did shoot Childermass? And her maid, who was going out with one of the footmen at the Norrell house, her maid comes clean, and it wasn't the French spy story that even her husband was pitching to her. No, she says, listen, that Mr. Drawlight, he's got loose lips. He's letting everybody know.
It's not a surprise. And again, as you said earlier, the less we have of Drawlight, Drawlight is a meter really for how funny the episode is going to be. The less we have of Drawlight, the less funny it is.
Right. I want to point out that back when he met the king, that even Mr. Norrell has been influenced by my boy Drawlight, because he's introducing himself with the Drawlight pronunciation
of Norrell. So those of you who are giving us a hard time, even he doesn't know how to say it. So we'll say it however we well please.
And so influencing the first magician in the land in his pronunciation, that's going to make Mr. Drawlight my first nominee for Magician of the Week. He has influenced the pronunciation of... He's got a guy pronouncing his last name wrong.
I love it.
And so Drawlight is my first nominee for Magician of the Week. We cut back to Windsor, and Norrell's like, hey, you know what? You can't cure madness. And he even says, people don't understand us. I heard somebody saying that we did some crazy, ridiculous, false magic in the war. And he's like, I told him we don't do that. Only modern magic for a modern age.
Right. Now, before we go on, I wanted my first Magician of the Week.
Yeah.
Is whoever made these pants, who make it look like both Mr. Strange and Dr. Norrell are actually females. There's a little bit, there's a little bit of what looks to be like camel toe here in both of these pants.
You know what? I thought these pants are almost a bit fascinating. You understand they didn't have zippers, so they're like two buttons and this flap just falls when a gentleman has to relieve himself in the restroom.
Well, that's whoever sewed these pants. This is my first nominee for Magician of the Week.
Okay.
But now what really happens here is interesting. I love the way they do this is because, we think, okay, there's going to be an issue here. But then what really happens is we're introduced to a whole new thing here. And that is we see a picture of the Raven King.
Yeah, lovely painting.
Looks glorious.
He looks like Chris Angel.
Well, hey, Chris Angel was also the greatest magician of the age.
That's right. Also, about this picture, who do you notice there on the left-hand side?
Well, I noticed that peeking around the corner,
right,
a little peekaboo, is the man with the thistle-down hair. Now, since he's only in the back there, hidden, what makes me really wonder is, okay, who's the lady?
Ooh,
because she's more prominently featured.
That's
and
true.
then, of course, who's the dog?
And the unicorn, right. Well, this gets to my second nominee for Magician of the Week.
Okay.
So what is, in this painting of the Raven King, what is the gentleman with thistle-down hair doing? You're right, Catfish, he's peeking. And who did he learn that from? Drawlight. Drawlight a couple of weeks ago was peeping. And so once again, peeping, Drawlight, peeping, man with thistle-down hair. 2 nominations for Drawlight as Magician of the Week.
Now, this is really interesting because, again, we keep hearing about the Raven King, but we only ever see the man with the thistle-down hair.
That's right.
And so I'm curious, having not remembered the book, whether we're ever going to get to the Raven King.
Well, we at least know what he's supposed to look like in this long-haired goth guy.
Chris Angel.
That's right. And so, Catfish, we talk about these footnotes in the book all the time. We've incorporated them into our podcast. And one thing about the footnotes in the book is they can be ridiculously long. So I am about to drop a ridiculously long footnote on all our listeners. Ooh. I apologize.
I'm going to take a nap.
You should, because I think it's time. I've been holding off on this. It's time to get to the Raven King. Now, he called himself John Usglass, also known as the Black King, the King of the North, and more commonly the Raven King. He was the ruler of northern England for 300 years, and he's credited with bringing magic to England.
Wait, he was the ruler for 300 years?
Yeah, he lived beyond human terms, even though he was a human. By his own account, he was the only surviving member of an aristocratic Norman family who owned land in north of England. Members of his family had been deprived of their lands and their lives by an enemy named Herbert du Cautelin, and the king's father, who he says was also named John Usglass, appealed to his king William II for justice, but he didn't get any. Shortly after, the father was murdered by this villain, and the Raven King, left as an unchristened babe in the woods, was left to die. That's when some fairies found him and brought him into the netherworld.
Got it.
He refers to this part of his life as his nameless slave period, because he was a slave there back in whatever time this was, when the Normans attacked. But by the age of 14, he had gotten this incredible magical education from the fairy king Oberon, and he called himself, once again, John Usglass, and he returned to England to seek vengeance on those who had wronged him and his kin. In the year 1110, an army appeared in northern England, and by Christmas, this fairy army had taken over York, Lancaster, and Carlisle, Newcastle, and Durham. No one knew what to make of this out-of-nowhere army of a naturally wicked and lazy race of fairies. In January, King Henry I rode his army out to meet them in battle. The armies met at Newark on the Trent River, but due to the Raven King's magic, the battle was short and King Henry lost. When it became clear that King Henry was defeated, they wanted to see who was leading this other army, and a 15-year-old boy appeared who was dressed exactly like the fairies, but it was obvious he was human. He told Henry that he had no name, and he settled it that the land of North England, from the Tweed to the Trent Rivers, he was taking it to reclaim what had been his. He ruled for over 300 years. His coat of arms was a raven in flight, a black raven on a white field. His capital city was Newcastle. He ruled wisely and just, but at one time, Catfish, in 1202, he quarreled with winter and banished it from his kingdom and enjoyed 4 years of continual summer. Hey, Westeros, how you doing?
Whoa, that is awesome.
In the year 1345, for 30 nights, all his subjects spent their nights dreaming the exact same dream.
Oh, what was that?
All the citizens were building a tall black tower. They would awaken exhausted and dreaded a day's work for that whole month. Only when the Black Tower was completed were they finally free of this terrible, hideous dream.
Oh, man.
It was in 1434.
They were slaggers. They didn't like work.
It was 1434 when he abandoned his kingdom entirely, and I think this is why Mr. Norrell hates him so much. He just abandoned his kingdom and disappeared into the fairy realm.
He always says 300 years, but it seems to me like it's been like 370, 300.
Close,
yeah.
Anyway, after he disappeared, I've mentioned this before, magic drained from England. And Norrell says things like, hey, do you think he cares what happened to England? He does not. He abandoned us long ago. And but some people say, you know what? He went into the fairy realm to protect England from the other lands.
Well, it seems to me it's a little confusing the way Norrell is because it's like you can give him a hard time for one of two things: either his connection to the Fairyland, or for leaving us. I mean, it seems to me that Norrell's very bitter about fairy magic, and it would seem to me that he's associating the Raven King with fairy magic. So he's not upset that he left. He is upset that he besmirched the name of magic.
Yeah, sure. The final bit of this long footnote I'll tell you is that he tells everybody he's John Usglass, but it's almost certainly not his true name.
What?
Because he claims to come from a Norman family, and yet Usglass, or even de Usglass, that's not French at all. And people say, well, maybe that is perhaps one of his name, where he came from in the old Celtic tongues, which is known to relate to the language of fairies. And that's a Cliff Notes version. Thank you to the library at Hertfield.
Was it really? Wow.
On the Raven King, a.k.a. John Usglass.
Okay.
All right, so let's continue on. And we leave this scary, scary painting. And guess what? We get to our first commercial break, so it's time to pull in our CC.
Oh, man, this is fabulous.
In this first commercial break, do you want to take us through? What were your favorite things you saw?
Well, Bubba, personally, my favorite commercial that I saw was the commercial for the Graham Norton show.
The Graham Norton show. You like that? Okay.
The commercial, it really made me want to watch the show more. It had Benedict Cumberbatch dancing like a chicken. So
wow.
I really thought, how bad could it be?
Okay.
I also saw...
Well, we saw some Reese's Peanut Butter Cup ads. They want us to enjoy some delicious chocolate and peanut butter during the show.
Yes, their new wafer pretzel things.
Mm-hmm.
That looks yummy.
Right, they're like stealing Twix.
Or Kit Kats.
And so what else? Was there anything else in this commercial break that made you say, ooh, this is perfect for people who watch Strange and Norrell?
No.
No.
It all looks really boring.
Well, there is a lot of insurance ads here in the States, and so that is kind of tough. Nicorette gum, yeah, I guess it wasn't exactly exciting. So your favorite one, between Reese's Peanut Butter Cup and the Graham Norton show, which was your favorite commercial?
The Graham Norton show.
All right. Hey, BBC America, send us some prizes for the Graham Norton show.
Look at that. People love that. Well, at the very least, if people are going to watch the Graham Norton show, then maybe they'll like some commercials on the Graham Norton show.
All right. Let's get back to Strange and Norrell. Strange is kind of frustrated with everything. His wife is mentioning this Miss Gray that she had mentioned about earlier, and she mentions once again, hey, husband, she has paintings of you. She says she's getting taught by you. She said she gave you some money, and he's like, honey, I don't remember her at all.
But he says, but most important, I don't remember those 400 guineas.
Right.
Hello. Well, let's think about how much 400 guinea was, because 300 guineas.
Right.
Was it 300 guineas that was enough to take the books, or was it 2,000 guineas?
It was 2,000 guineas.
Still,
but
still, if you could get 400 guineas from 5 people each, boom, books.
Right, I'm ready. I'm ready for some guineas right now.
Yeah.
Listeners, don't give your guineas to BBC America.
That's right. What are they going to do with them? They're just gonna have more crazy costumes on the Graham Norton show.
Right, and probably the main point of this scene between husband and wife is we find out Arabella has given up on Lady Pole. Because of this shooting, she says, well, now I guess she is really mad. You don't have to help the king for me because it's not going to help Lady Pole. Let's just throw in the towel.
Got it. But then they talk a little bit about who shot Norrell.
Right.
And then they're just going to say, okay, forget this. And, Strange is also, it's a little nice. He's like, don't give yourself any blame. And if I was her, I would have been like, well, yeah. I tell you what, why don't you give yourself no blame either? Because why would I have any blame?
Well, remember the evil men in the last episode were trying to say that Arabella was driving her hysterical. Remember, Lady Pole?
No, that's what we had our aside about the root of the word hysterical.
And it is tough. It is painful watching this stuff. And so because she has given up on Lady Pole, she does go to see Lady Pole being taken away. And Arabella watches Stephen put her in the carriage to take her away. But she notices that Sir Walter Pole, it looks like he gives Childermass some money or something, or shakes his hand. No, he shakes his hand. And so Arabella certainly has to wonder, why is Childermass involved in this at all, since he's the one she shot?
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the only way he'd be involved. And then we have probably the most, the funniest scene remaining on the show tonight. You bask in the glory of it.
Right.
When they're obviously, there's two funny things that are happening. One, they're obviously just blowing up all the things that Norrell did out of proportion. And the other one is...
In the book, right.
In the book. And the other one is that Drawlight's like, it's clearly left out of it. I felt a little sad for Drawlight here because basically it seems like his only skill is like is oral blustering. Apparently he doesn't bluster in print.
Well, remember in the last episode, you kind of get distracted because Childermass was like, there's magic going on and he's trying to find Lady Pole. But there was a very brief interaction between Drawlight and LaSalle's where Drawlight's like, look, you can make money because you're writing this book. You'll get paid. I can't make any money. And so...
Which leaves the question,
yeah,
what was Drawlight making money at before? And I guess the answer by the end of this episode is nothing,
right.
But he was spending a lot of money on powdered wigs.
He was getting invited to great parties. He was meeting people. He was how would you make money off this if you didn't have some scam? It's tough.
No, apparently he sort of weakly landed gentry.
Yeah, there are just some hilarious bits in this. Norrell's like, with this book, finally we can get rid of the notion that I did magic to do people's laundry. And Drawlight's like, hey!
I gotta get out of here.
Hey! Of course, he's probably going to one of these people he's scamming.
Absolutely, that's what we realize afterwards.
And also, though, LaSalle's is going over all the chapters. He'll be like, oh, of course, we'll have a great chapter about the sea beacons. And Strange is just needling. Strange is like, oh, are those done yet?
for the purposes of the book, they are. Yeah, let's say, sure, why not? Why not? Maybe by the time it's published.
But I feel, once again, I think it's easy to be on Team Strange as opposed to Team Norrell. But Jonathan Strange, if he had ever looked at any of these preview chapters of the book, he could have hopefully maybe stopped some of this earlier, some of this just kind of BS that is happening earlier. Instead, he's just kind of needling and he's not paying attention to it.
Well, I guess that's true. That's part of his laziness, but also...
Arabella reads the book and tells him, boy, you're not coming out well in this book. And once again, he doesn't follow up on it.
Yeah, I don't think that he at this point can question Mr. Norrell.
No. He has decided that he's going to go help the king again. Do you think that's the right call?
Well, I do think it's the right call because, again, if you look at his opinion is, and it seems to be borne out by his behavior, is that Norrell doesn't really want to help the king. And he wants to help the king.
He does. That's
again,
true.
every mistake that Strange has made up to this point, up into including the rest of this episode, is to help. He has good intentions.
Oh, without question. And I just want to say, this scene where he goes back to King George, I loved this entire scene. So Strange has been flipping through books. He doesn't think anything can work. And then finally he sees this candelabra and he thinks, I keep trying to call a fairy. Maybe if I call one. And the man with thistle-down hair just doesn't allow Strange to see him. But of course, who can see him?
The madness of King George.
Oh my goodness gracious. This is so great. So wonderful as he starts, as a viewer, you catch on. Wait, who's he talking to? Oh,
yeah. It doesn't take long to figure out who he's talking to.
Especially when he says, I've never heard of any of your kingdoms, Lost Hope. Or
and he gets defensive. Hey, no, come on. No worries. King to king, right, bro? King to king.
The City of Iron Angels? That sounds like a fine kingdom. Come on.
Lost Hope, whatever. Hey, that's cool with me.
And I love that you describe it as Strange's mistakes, because maybe they're not really mistakes, but once again, I go back to the infamous sand horses, where he starts these sand horses off, up, and there are people on the beach, and they're like, they run away. Strange is not a bad guy at all, but through some of his magic, he can cause very dangerous things, because he doesn't know what he's really getting himself into. And the king suddenly starts speaking. Strange still doesn't quite understand what's happening.
Strange is like, whatevs. And you know what? Never turn your back on the king. Let me just say that. Never turn your back on the king, especially if he's out of his mind nuts.
Right. No, I completely agree. And when he disappears through the mirror, Strange realizes, oh, snap.
Whoopsie.
Yay. Do you think he could just leave right now and be like, I left the king?
My thought was like, boy. That would I would be, oh, darn it. What happened?
And so, once again, we have this. What I love about this scene is you don't see the gentleman with thistledown hair, but he's controlling so much. Mm-hmm. He brings King George out to where Stephen was in the carriage bringing Lady Pole up north. So he brings the king there. He puts a sword in Stephen's hand.
And it is a super long sword.
Oh, yeah. You wonder if perhaps that's how you take over. You had talked about this last week about, hey, how is he going to get Stephen to be king of Lost Hope? And I didn't want to spoil it, but I was like, I don't think he wants Stephen to be king of Lost Hope. He wants Stephen to be king of England, and he's going to kill the current king to do it.
I will say this for a second, though.
Yeah.
That watching this again, there's another super long sword in this episode of Strange and Norrell. Do you remember where it was? The Raven King was holding an extremely long sword. And so I don't know whether it's the Raven King's sword, but there was a similarity between the two of them, both very long swords. And maybe that's just what they tell the ladies.
So the magic is pulling Stephen towards the king. Stephen's going to swing down and literally smite the king and kill him. Jonathan Strange knows, I gotta solve this, la, 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 this music, I'll blow out the candle. And luckily, he gets King George back. But, snap, trouble.
Yeah, well, and this is where he first gets the idea, that, okay, well, mirrors have power.
Right.
And I think this is where he really starts fixating on the mirrors. And then later on, we're going to see in the mirrors, there's something that's talked about that's not explored deeply, that was more explored in the book. So we'll talk about that when we get to the other mirror action. But then we go back and we see
the Northern Road where the gentleman with thistledown hair, he's upset.
Man,
the magician has foiled our plans again, Stephen.
Man, he has got a bug in his ass about Jonathan Strange. I don't know why.
Well, don't you love he keeps saying our plans, and Stephen's like, our plans.
Right? Well, I mean, here's the thing. Strange is the one who sent him there, or did the magic so that he was accessible by the man with the thistledown hair. I still don't know. The man with the thistledown hair he's upset with Strange for no reason.
Yeah, but he wants to destroy him utterly and
take
his wife.
What did he ever do to him? Well, of course, he's got the wife, which
don't you think that the gentleman with thistledown hair, he always wants to add and take his wife to everything. Like if he was at Wendy's ordering a Baconator fries, he'd be like, I'd like one order of Baconator fries. And the magician's wife. Kind of obsessed there, thistledown hair.
And how would you like your burger cooked? Well done, like the magician's wife.
I mean, get over it. So he mentions to Stephen, he's like, good plan, Stephen. We need a moss oak.
Right? Stephen's like, yeah, sure, right. I remember that plan when I came up with
it.
And
we don't like spoilers here, folks. But this is a funny thing. When I was doing my interview with the wonderful John Reppian, who writes those great articles at Daily Grail, I looked up fairies because John is writing these incredible articles at dailygrail.com. Everybody check them out. They're all on the fairy world that Strange and Norrell kind of talks about and the history of it. And if you Google fairies and go to the Wikipedia page on fairies, to be honest, that whole Wikipedia page might be a spoiler alert for this series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like this history of fairies, which I don't know. But I was reading it and I was like, oh. And so on that page, it explained the moss oak. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, so don't go there.
Real. Yeah, this is really from history.
Don't go there because I don't want to know what the moss oak is. It's creepy though.
But he
what's
says, I will bargain
says,
her life away, and the magician will have no idea he's done so.
My God, you know what? Again, like, what did he ever do to you, bro?
He calls me. Well, you know what? Hold on. Let's stand up for Team Gentleman with Thistledown here.
Okay, please. Let's hear it.
It would be a bit annoying. It would be a bit annoying if kind of like, hey, I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to go to the movies, check out Ted 2, and suddenly some jerk with a candle can just call me away. Like I'm about to go somewhere, and he can summon me there.
But he barely called him, and then he said he calls him stupid. I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough to ruin the dude's whole life.
If people could just summon you in a snap, you'd be like, I'm going to get this guy. And his wife.
And his wife. I want my flurry with M&Ms. And his wife.
So we get to another commercial break.
Oh, commercial break.
Let's hear it. Now, it's little
This is Little Murray.
Little Murray. Okay, get in here. What did you think of this second commercial break?
Well, the first commercial for Home Depot, it was okay.
They want you to paint, hey.
Yeah, the painting, the same thing with little marking the girl's head.
By the way, Little Murray, I didn't tell you that I hope you're paying attention to that commercial because this entire week you're going to be painting the inside of my house.
It's like Tom Sawyer, but fun.
Yeah, it was okay. I liked the little girl getting her height checked. That was cool.
Oh, right. We have Kit Kat.
Kit Kat, I liked it. There's one point where father-daughter moment brings family time in. The father-daughter kind of eating it together.
It's heartwarming.
That lady right there, there's a security guard.
Everybody
not even watching because she's eating her Kit Kat. Some guy could just walk in, totally rob the place or whatever.
So you think this is an anti-Kit Kat. So Kit Kat is like a PSA. Eat our candy, but not when you're watching Garth.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, this Liberty stuff.
Another insurance. I know you're not a big fan of insurance commercials. You had geese flying home for Verizon.
That was nice.
Okay.
But the first few, not really into the...
Yeah, no, this was a tough commercial break for you. DirecTV ads,
Oh, there was a Kingsman one, though. Kingsman, great movie.
Oh, thank you very much, little...
You guys should check it out.
And nice. Car commercials. Did you have any... Oh,
and this, Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares.
Yeah?
Commercial didn't really want me to watch it more.
Oh, unlike Graham Norton, you don't want to watch this show.
Ramsay, he's done so many shows where he does the same crap about yelling at people for their food not being right. And I do like watching other people get yelled at that aren't me, but
all right.
I didn't really like it.
We know you're related to Catfish if you say you like seeing people get yelled at.
Wow, so that's the upside here is Gordon Ramsay, the younger dynamic says you are overexposed.
All right, let's get back to Strange and Norrell. And Strange is back from this second scene with the king, and he wants to find out. He's like, isn't there something... I've heard that the fairies have a strong interest in madness. Isn't that in a book? Isn't there something about mirrors? And Norrell's just got to shut this down.
Mm-hmm.
And this is...
I'm surprised he didn't shut it down earlier.
Okay.
Like, I'm not even telling you where those books are. Sit your ass down.
Well, he gives them, he's like the northwesterly bookshelf, and then he's like, oh, wait, what? Okay, so this is where Norrell, he brought back Lady Pole, and what's happened to her is terrible, but he was tricked, so I almost want to let him slide. But if he came...
But he knew not to mess with that magic.
If he came clean, if he came clean to Strange here.
Absolutely.
So he's kind of, this is the big thing.
This would be a boring 4-episode series.
Well, here's the thing. Norrell is right. They shouldn't be messing with this stuff. Look at the craziness that's already happened to Lady Pole, to the king, to poor Stephen.
He comes the closest here, I think. Even this is the closest. Forget the end of the episode. He doesn't come close there. This is the closest he comes to saying, look, let me explain to you why this is bad magic.
Why? Well, Catfish, let's think about this. Why isn't Norrell just admitting it? Why isn't he coming clean if that's the right move?
Because he knows he did the wrong thing. Listen, it's like this.
Yeah.
The whole time he is, and I believe he believes in this.
Right.
But he believes in respectable magic. He's all about respectable magic. And the thing that brought him to the attention of everyone, the very first thing he did, is the most disreputable magic possible. This would ruin his reputation. And he can't, forget his reputation. He doesn't, like in the world, his reputation with another magician.
Ooh, well, you were getting to it. Because I was going to say, he doesn't have to tell the world. He could just tell Jonathan Strange.
But he cares about, I think he cares about what Strange thinks about him more than anyone else. Because he's another magician.
But you agree, or I think this, and I think...
This is heartbreaking right here, because this is where you really just please tell him why.
Right. And because he's talking about, middle-age magic, uncivilized magic, and in the past he talked about, these fairies playing evil tricks on people and kidnapping people, so he's right. But if, you just want to beat your head against the wall, Mr. Norrell, come on, man up and do it. Oh, painful, painful, painful. And this is where you see, to be honest...
I mean, he's so upset that that Norrell's glasses are like totally askew.
Yeah, well, it's tough. The one thing that, once again, the AV Club review of this episode was a bit tough on it. And when you think about it, why I can kind of understand their point. You need to be invested in Strange and Norrell breaking up. But they've really only had one episode together. Episode 2, where they met because episode 3, Strange was in the war, and for pretty much the whole episode, and so. In this episode, they're just sniping at each other.
There is truth to the fact that we never see a real affinity between Strange and Norrell. They're just that moment, teacher and pupil.
Well, just that moment right at the very beginning where he sees what Trick had done, and he's like, "Oh, this is cool."
Right, but it's still, even then, we never saw, like, I mean, he seemed excited to get have the 10-year plan for him, the whole thing, but we never see. I mean, but on the other hand, this is the whole part of it.
Yeah,
is that because they never became close, because they never were like partners in anything. This is why they break up, because he can't explain anything to him, because Norrell still feels like he's in a position of authority and has to present that authority, so he can't show his weakness.
No, he can't.
So, I mean, I understand that. We never see them together, but we do know that, that this is causing trouble, that he can't tell him.
Yeah, it's tough. So we leave them in another situation. Norrell pitches, "Hey, have you read the book?" And once again, Strange's like, "No, I haven't read it." But he takes it home to his wife. But instead, we follow Lady Pole, and she arrives at Staircross.
Shocking.
Wasn't it?
Shocking.
Don't you love Secundus's jacket here, where he's like, "Okay, I need to be a madhouse doctor. Let me get a..."
I mean, this is the last thing I thought these guys would go, what about magic, but you ever considered loony bins?
So once again, I think, and I don't remember if this is explained in the book, I think that Childermass is like, "Hey, I know it has something to do with magic, and I want to put her in a place. I'll send her to these two guys. These two guys claim to be interested in magic. Maybe they'll help." So
I think he thinks because they know something, but they're really not magical at all.
No.
But little does he know,
right?
Another thing that we've seen this already happen once, and we see it happen here, that Secundus may not be a magician, but he knows magic when he sniffs it in the air.
He sure does.
He can smell magic all over people, and he is getting a whiffful from Stephen
and Lady Pole. Now, you said there was no more comedy in the episode. This is a kind of a black comedy scene. She's like, "These are magicians. No. And they just close the door behind her.
Yeah, right.
And Secundus is like, that went pretty well.
I like Secundus's optimism and Honeyfoot's tomfoolery.
Hey, now. Oh, my goodness. And Stephen, once again, they both have these roses in front of their mouth, and it is just brutal. Oh, they can't say they are having the worst life ever.
My issue, if I would have an issue with anybody in this series, it's Stephen. I don't get, like, he seems it doesn't quite work to me. He pretty much seems like he's in a daze all the time.
Well, like Lady Pole, he's not going to sleep. The poor guy. That would drive you mad.
I understand that, but he's not. I mean, he's reacting it. He's not really reacting to it in a way that I would expect it. Like Lady Pole, I totally understand hers, but him, he just seems just bereft of emotion. I guess I still don't get like where his head's at. I guess that's my problem.
Well, I think a bit of it, and I've been tough on Stephen too, but I think a bit of it is what he was talking about before. Even if I kill the king with this magical sword, and I'm the Kingslayer, and I suddenly get to be king, he's like, "Listen, gentlemen, with thistle-down here, they will never give anybody with the color of my skin. I'll never get any respect." He always says he's not a slave, but he's kind of been beaten into a lower class position, and that's not fair to him.
I guess, but I just don't like. I don't feel his sympathy for Lady Pole, and I don't.
Oh, okay.
I guess he doesn't have to have sympathy just for her, because he feels pretty bad himself. I mean, obviously he's going through some stuff, but I don't get what he's going through, really.
So Arabella has read this book, LaSalle's book, and she's telling Jonathan he doesn't care about it. He keeps trying to get through the mirror. Mm-hmm. And Arabella keeps bringing up, she's like, "Jonathan, you remember the first spell you did, right? Seeing your enemy.
Right.
It's Norrell."
She brought that up before. So
she keeps bringing it up. She doesn't trust him. So Strange, he goes to blow off some steam. This is General Grant, his good buddy from the war effort.
And by the way, we know Strange from his earlier reprobate life. We would guess that he's good at this game. Probably wagering at it.
I also think Grant is right. I think he was cheating, don't you? It was a bit obvious,
I don't think he was. Do you think he was cheating?
I don't know. It looked like a great shot, but it looked like a really good shot. And so I was wondering, wouldn't you cheat if you could?
The ball didn't like bend around or anything.
No,
I guess I would too. Sure. And then these two, again, I was wrong. So here's another funny bit because these two bozos show up out of nowhere.
Now, Catfish.
Oh no!
I have 2 nominees, 2 more people.
To
nominate for my Magicians of the Week. I've
and
nominated Drawlight twice. So
yep.
These brewers, Mr. Tantony and Mr. Gatcombe, brewers, they get Strange so mad that he's able to go through the mirrors and perform a spell.
They do. They do provide the impetus. These guys are just bozos. Basically, they're hicks. They're hicks.
Hey, Nottingham. Nothing happens here. Now, did you, Catfish, you were kind of surprised that Secundus and Honeyfoot were still around after the first episode.
I sure was. Wow.
This is the most...
And also I'm still surprised that Lady Pole is around. Remember, I thought she'd be gonzo by now.
So, Catfish, this is the most minor spoiler, but I want to know a yes or no. Do you think this is the last we see of Mr. Tatney and Mr. Gatcombe, the brewers?
I am going to sadly bid them adieu.
Okay. You don't think they're coming back?
I think they're gone. However, I think...
Another great pair, though.
Another great pair, and I would have been happy to essay either one of those roles. They should be very proud of themselves.
I love that Grant still refers to Jonathan Strange as Merlin. That nickname is stuck. And so these guys are like, hey... You can treat us poorly about this billiard, but, don't make fun of us. We're not hicks. My friend here, Mr. Tatney, he's going to be trained in magic from Jonathan Strange himself. We've been corresponding over letters, sir.
And this is the angriest I've seen Strange. He is beside himself.
Oh, yeah. Well, wouldn't you be if you found out that you weren't getting a cut of this great scam?
Right. The funny thing is, before, he didn't really track it down. Like, if someone was using my name, I would have tracked it down. He didn't track it down, but here it becomes obvious, and so he is
right.
pissed.
Well, they say this thing that Jonathan Strange has said to them, and he's like, well, I haven't said this to them, but I have said this. And so I wonder if he realizes, I have said this in front of people before. Like if part of Drawlight scam was, Mr. Strange, is there any way you could stop the rain in Nottingham? He's like, no, to do that would to do that.
Oh, so, right. He's been writing things down, although we've already determined he can't write.
No. So, yeah, Jonathan Strange is PO'd, and he goes up to this mirror, and he finally has...
Now, see, for me, I would have switched the dude's hair. I would have put the one guy's got a wig. I would have put on the other dude, and I would have moved the other guy's hair to the other dude's head.
Well, I was going to say a lot of the pairs. So Jonathan Strange.
Now that's respectable magic, isn't it? I just want to make sure. Is switching hair respectable and tolerable?
Jonathan Strange doesn't wear a wig, but Mr. Norrell doesn't. Mm-hmm. So one person of the team wears a wig. Mm-hmm. Drawlight wears a wig, but LaSalle's doesn't. One person.
Right.
And Mr. Tatney wears a wig, but Mr. Gatcombe doesn't. And even our boys, Honeyfoot and Secundus. Secundus has crazy Jonathan Strange-like hair, and Honeyfoot, it doesn't wear a wig, but he's kind of white-headed.
Yeah.
So they all a similar look for everybody here. You know what I mean?
Got it.
Got to go for the look. So, what did you think of our first appearance of the King's Road, Catfish? What do you think of this? Is it an Etcher sketch? What does this look like?
Well, it's interesting because not remembering when he goes back. I mean, it looks like a lot on the end. The kind of the entryway to Lost Hope. It has a very Lost Hope kind of feel.
Yeah, all these fairy realms just seem destroyed, kind of, but fanatical.
Right. They are. They're beautifully in disrepair,
and there are ravens everywhere,
and it's always overcast.
Like a blue tint is on the world for the blue fairies.
Right, because if it was sunny, you might have some hope.
And so we finally get to see Drawlight pulling the scam. It all comes together.
It really does. He is pulling the scam. And again, I was wrong again.
What do you mean?
Because... the things that this woman wants done to her husband
is hilarious.
Versus mother-in-law.
Miss Bulworth. Miss Bulworth is the best.
Yeah, she wants all these horrible things done, and
let's hold on. Let's read them because this is when you hate your mother-in-law this much, this is pretty sweet. So just a little footnote is that sure enough, her husband, Mr. Bulworth, cheated on her. And so she hates everybody. She hates her mother-in-law. So the three things that she wants done to her
and by the way,
mother-in-law.
while you're looking for that, I love Strange's response is, not even a magician can kill a person 3 different times.
Right. So he's like, okay, so her mother-in-law, he goes, first, to be drowned in a laundry tub.
After he cleans the laundry.
Right. To be choked to death on her own apricot preserves.
Wow.
And to be accidentally baked in a bread oven.
Oh, no, it's accidental. It's very difficult.
Yeah, this
Very
is
difficult. So it's first the mother-in-law and then the husband who cheated on her. That mother-in-law must be tough.
Right. Well, the husband, he just gets either a disfiguring disease and bankruptcy, lunacy, fire. She wants him to live but really suffer.
Yeah.
Oh, and so this is where Strange is also PO'd. He says, I have not entered any agreement with this, and he doesn't say gentleman. He says person when he refers to my boy Drawlight.
Your boy Drawlight, so sad. He's still trying to keep it together. But by the way, I'm surprised you didn't call. This is where I nominate Drawlight for my Magician of the Week.
Why is that?
Because despite the fact that he's older and portlier, somehow he manages to elude.
He
Mr.
disappears.
Strange here. He disappears. So that's his magic.
All right, I got another footnote before we go to our Double C commentator a bit, and let's talk about the King's Road. The King's Road
let's
is
do it
the
now.
name.
That's what I want to talk about because I think it's a little bit clearer in the book.
Oh, I do too.
Than it is here, at least at this point.
This didn't look like I imagined the King's Road to look like from the book. So, folks from our friends, the library at Hurtview, visit them online. They say that the King's Road is the name of a vast interconnecting system of roads, bridges, canals, and halls established by the Raven King for his own purposes. The King's Roads appear not to obey any rules of normality, insomuch as they link places not only in England but other worlds, including Fairy. The King's Road leads everywhere. Anything capable of offering a reflection, not merely mirrors, but even puddles, can act as a gate to the King's Road, if only a person knows how to open that gate.
Now, what's interesting here is you think of the King's Road as, it's sort of a physical thing that kind of mirrors the real world. However, you don't think he actually went to the physical place that mirrored where that woman was, right? He just kind of thinks, okay, I want to be here. Wherever here
he
is.
admits that he got lost and kind of took wrong turns. And
we don't know how long. It could have been 4 hours, but they didn't want it to be an 11-part series.
But I imagined it being more like when we saw the outside of Lost Hope. Kind of dark, spooky woods is how I imagined it. As you could be outside and you'd suddenly see dark, spooky woods.
No, I agree. I didn't expect it to be, and maybe it was that after he went through that nice place. But I also expected it to be just a road along through dark woods.
Right. Okay. So, do you want to break down this third commercial break, Little Murray?
Okay, Bubba. So, one of my favorite commercials here was the Subaru Impreza.
What do you like? What do you like about this Subaru?
The commercial I personally thought was very cute with the whole German Shepherd guy sort of dog thing. Yep. It was very nice.
Yeah.
And knowing Catfish, I know he loves his dog, so I kind of felt a little bit...
Catfish, do you want to mention a footnote about this Subaru commercial?
I would like to mention a footnote. The gentleman who was in this commercial.
Yeah, he's an old buddy of ours from Improv here in L.A.
Yeah, at Improv Olympic. Used to see him all the time in commercials.
Oh yeah.
But he gets lots of work. And I'm bitter nowadays because
you should get that role.
No, not because of that. Because if you notice, it's an odd thing.
Yeah.
Since I'm an actor and I try to get commercial work, because if anyone knows, the commercials are where the sweet money is.
Yeah.
Is that I noticed in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Everybody in commercials, dads.
Yeah.
Dads in their 40s and 50s.
Right.
Everybody has facial hair these days.
Oh.
So that's the thing that has come back. And my facial hair, it makes me look like Vinculus. In fact, Vinculus...
Less clean, but yeah.
Less clean than Vinculus because he has got much better facial hair than I do.
Okay.
So basically that takes me out. But it just take a look when you're watching commercials and notice how many people, even people who are just your standard suburban dads, have facial hair.
Right. Were there any other commercials? This included the infamous Wendy's Baconator fries that I was joking about earlier.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that looked disgusting.
Ooh, you don't like Wendy's? Oh, no.
To me, no, Wendy's is fine. Just
okay.
I think that they try to push it a little more.
We lost them as a sponsor? Or
that was fries, if you didn't know. Fries with nacho cheese, bacon, and yeah.
And love. What do you think about farmersonly.com?
I thought it was fine, but, it was getting a little too much relationship-y with
okay.
I think.
Catfish, did you have a comment about farmersonly.com?
Well, it's just that, this is the most serious commercial for farmersonly.com I've seen.
What do you mean?
Well, the first time I saw one, I really thought it was a joke commercial. There's two guys sitting outside a barn. Hey, have you ever tried farmersonly.com? And they got their dog sitting there, and then there's the one with the 20 ladies in a bar, and where they're singing farmersonly.com.
Well, this one didn't even have the jingle, did it?
No, it didn't have the jingle. That's what I'm saying. It's serious. Now, let me ask you this.
They're going for factory farmers.
Yeah, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you, Lil Murray?
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself attracted to a little farmer?
No, but this next commercial up here is the State Farm commercial. I really love this commercial in Las Vegas with all of the Las Vegas rock stars competing with each other about what was the best way to say, like a good neighbor, State Farm was there.
Did you have a favorite?
I like the last person with the parachute.
Okay, yeah, he's pretty good.
I really like all of them, though, but I think it was really hilarious.
Little Murray, we're going to have to, how can you say it? You give us your best, like a good neighbor. Let's hear it.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. But I can't go as good as them.
Oh, no, that was pretty good. Now, maybe we'll get them.
Very good.
We'll get them for a sponsor.
That was very good.
Yeah. All right, so Catfish, it is time. We got to get back to the strange household.
So good.
Where
you know what? Again, I apologize. I was very hard on this episode. Here's yet another scene which has got some humor in it.
Right. Well, it's a great. Once again, I want to give a shout out to Peter Harness. This is a great scene where it's a believable fight. It's a realistic fight. It has all the emotion. But by having Grant and the other officer there, it does add a bit of levity to it.
Right? Because they're like, guess we're stuck here? Let's pretend we're not here, I guess.
Right. This was...
because they're my anti-magicians of the week.
Oh, what do you mean?
Because they didn't manage to disappear themselves from that situation, as I would have just slowly backed out of the room.
Whose side are you on here? Are you on Jonathan Strange's side? Hey, I'm a magician. I've got to explore this magical realm. Or are you on Arabella's side of, you don't know what you're doing. You're entering areas that you admit is dangerous. So you got to stop this.
If I didn't know what I knew, I'd be on his side. If I didn't know how horrible, I mean, if I didn't know that this man with thistle-down hair was scheming to get his wife.
And his wife.
By any means necessary. I mean, he's right? I mean, it is a little dangerous, but this is exciting. This is what, he's been held back from the whole time. So I understand his excitement here, for sure.
I do, but it ends, never go to bed angry. Never go to bed, after a fight like this, because it ends pretty bad. Because she's like, I want you to promise me you won't go on the roads anymore. And he's like, I won't. And she's like, you know what? I wish I'd never told you to get a job. I wish I could get the guy, the happy-go-lucky bum who did nothing.
Right.
And so, pretty tough. And just as tough as we see the couple of Jonathan Strange and Arabella breaking up.
This is where I felt the most for you, Bubba.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right here, this scene, I felt the most for you.
Well, which duo breaking up was the most painful? Strange and Norrell or LaSalle's and Drawlight?
Well, considering I was waiting for these two guys to stab each other in the back the whole time. Also a very nice, subtle thing. Well, it's not that subtle, but, we get the idea. When LaSalle gets out of the cab, he puts his handkerchief over his nose, so it's clear that Drawlight is hiding in a less savory neighborhood.
Yeah, less respectable area. You would put up a yellow tent to do magic here.
Right.
And poor Drawlight, he has no way to do it. And I think he's a bit right. He's like, without me, nobody would have heard of Norrell. Nobody would have heard of you or your book. I just need... Now, he did ring up a bunch of debts, which is a bad move, Drawlight.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty fun...
what's funny is he said money wasn't for me. It's,
right.
It's for the people I borrowed money from.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting logic there.
Right. It's, you know what? And we all love caper movies. We all love con movies. This is like Draw Light's version of The Sting.
Right. Remember, this was before this was Ocean's 1810.
Right. Hey, I got to pull one last scam. And Team LaSalle's didn't have anybody on it last week. Do you think anybody will jump onto the Team LaSalle this week?
No.
Where he's like, if you do anything to ruin my standing with Norrell, I'll kill you. And hey, Footman, turn Draw Light into the cops.
What's interesting is you think it's not going to happen because he really puts Draw Light on notice. Like, you better take care of this or da-da-da-da.
And then he puts him at ease a bit. Like, I'll
because,
see what I can do.
Fine. It's like, okay, the guy yelled at me, it's going to be okay. And then, boom, he turns around and pretty much screws him.
Right. Team LaSalle's going to be hard to get on after he did this. And when he goes back, we follow LaSalle back to Hanover Square where, to be honest, Mr. Norrell wants to do something worse than turn him into the cops. He wants him hanged.
Yeah. Well, and here's this is an interesting scene because even though one thing's being said, we as the audience know that there's another thing happening here.
Go for it.
Because Norrell is talking about other people besmirching Magic's name, but what we think is he's going to use it to maybe put Strange on trial.
Oh yeah.
To oppose Strange.
God.
But that's not what's being said, but we clearly feel that as audience members, like, whoa, this is very dangerous for Strange.
Right. He's like, Strange, he can't find a way, because he won't tell the truth, to get Strange to stop checking out, fairy history and stuff.
Right.
And so, so terrible. And you say there's no more humor. I actually like Sir Walter Pole's got a great line here. I want to quote it verbatim. He goes, listen, you need to learn to live in the face of constant criticism, opposition, and censure. It's the English way. But yeah, oh my God, when he wants to have him hanged. I love that Jonathan Strange is about to say, when I was in the peninsula, but his wife has called him on it.
Right.
When I was in the war.
Okay, over there.
Right.
Yeah, and then Strange again is excited, and
he's asking Norrell to come with him, but Norrell, Norrell, if you could just, maybe you could say, LaSalle's, Walter Pole, step outside. I just keep wishing he would just tell Strange the truth and explain the true danger of playing with Pandora's box.
Right. I mean, even if he could go with him and say, but what's going to happen is he's going to get called out on his stuff. But Strange is so excited, he wants to go.
Right, this is the friendship. He's asking, fellow magician, come with me.
Right, exactly.
Oh, and it ends just so painfully where Norrell's just cutting him down, just saying, you're doing such harm to English magic. Yeah, this is scary, scary stuff.
Right, because we know at this point, that Strange is going to go do, we think anyway, he's just going to go do what he does. Oh, but before he goes...
I want you to look at the spine of this book, Catfish.
Okay.
It is so great. What does the spine say is the title of the book? Or the title of the books. What does it say?
Well, you're going to have to read it to me.
It says Gilbert Norrell, Esquire. And then in smaller print, it says, and Mr. Strange. So it's the exact opposite of the title of Susanna Clarke's book.
Right, exactly.
And then underneath that, in the same big font that it says Gilbert Norrell, Esquire, it says the author, Henry Lascelles, Esquire, and the year 1815. And Strange finally is going to read this damn book.
And what's nice is, though, he gets a free copy,
right.
But he didn't get it autographed. I always like to have my, especially first editions, autographed if I can. Especially
if you're going to go on Amazon or Goodreads and write a pan review of it.
Right.
And Lascelles actually, let's be honest, probably a scumbag. He says, Mr. Strange, your help was invaluable. He probably, I pretty much made your contributions to Magic minimal and dissed you throughout the book, but Lascelles, at least outward appearance, wants to seem nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Lord Pole is there.
Okay, another commercial break. Little Murray, let's hear it. We got Lexus car commercial.
Yes, the Lexus car commercial. I like it. It's pretty cool. The Tums smoothies I liked with the bologna sandwich. The lady.
Yeah, the pastrami's following you. Yeah, you need some Tums for that pastrami. Reese's wants you to double down.
So they're promoting Reese's to chill, which I like. And Ancestry, I haven't gone on this. I tried to once. But
you don't want to know. You don't want to know how you're related to Catfish.
What were you going on Ancestry.com for?
I wanted to see what Catfish's great-grandmother was like.
Oh, brother. We know she was probably a witch. All right. And BBC promotes other shows. They've got their show Earth. I think Earth documentary is great.
Earth is great.
Yeah, it is.
Lots of people show it at schools.
Oh, yeah. No, it is great. It is.
Great rainy day schedule movie.
All right.
Educational.
See, look at all the pimping we're doing for BBC America, but no giveaways.
Where's our love, BBC America?
I'm saying.
The only thing we're tired of is Gordon Ramsay.
Right.
But aren't you tired of him too?
All right, so Strange, he's going the full hater. Hater's gonna hate, like my girl T Swift says.
Yeah.
T Swizzle. She's like, hater's gonna hate.
Yeah.
And he is panning this book. And his wife's like, wait a minute, you're listed as kind of the people who helped create the book.
Right. But, he's
It'd
like...
be like us going on iTunes and giving this podcast a bad review.
There's still time for me.
There is.
There's still time.
Now.
But, he's like, this is, he feels bad. He's apologizing. You
got to make up to Arabella. She did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She was right. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't go on these roads. And once again, this is Strange. If he'd only looked at the book earlier, I'm not sure LaSalle's would have listened to him, but he could have said something to straighten this out. You know what I mean?
Okay, but let me ask you a question, Bubba.
Sure.
What does if he would have brought up the same stuff earlier, I don't see that, like, letting the book come out and then, I guess publicly excoriating it is one thing, but it still would have been a hassle if he'd have said something before it had been published.
Yeah, but isn't it a bit shady? Say what you will about how you feel about LaSalle's, but Mr. Norrell, even if you don't like him, he's your buddy. He's your teacher, and you're publicly dissing his book. You don't want to give him a heads up earlier?
Right, I suppose so. But he does go speak with them.
After he publishes it publicly and shames it. Shames his book publicly.
Right.
Ouch. Not cool. Let's go back up to Staircross, where Lady Pole hates magicians, and so she's given Secundus and Honeyfoot no love.
And me too, I felt the same way. Like, I don't know what their end game was here, sort of. But
this is where it starts to turn around.
Okay.
At least her feelings towards Secundus and Honeyfoot.
Oh, for sure.
Because she sees how they treat Childermass. Because when she sees Childermass, she's like, Stephen, get a gun. Shoot these magicians, shoot him, shoot everybody.
Right.
And Secundus, he's like, listen, you wrote and told us that Lady Pole was going to come here.
He's paying for it, essentially, right? Sounds like Childermass
I think Childermass and, probably using some money from Norrell and Pole is
right. But he was the one who arranged it, and but they're saying no entrada, por favor.
Did you respect Secundus and Honeyfoot for doing this?
I thought that was totally awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, but as a viewer, yes, I think it's totally awesome. But as a viewer, you know that Childermass is a good guy, right?
That's the great thing. No. The great thing is you see what they're doing,
right,
and you understand what they're doing, but you also know that they're putting an obstacle because you do want Childermass to get to the bottom of this,
right?
Because it'd be better, but you understand why they're stopping him,
right? But their history with Childermass, they even call him on it. Hey, you were stealing people's books that they have reserved at bookstores. You were taking away people's livelihood. They don't like him. And I'm just going to say it, folks. Remember the chestnut gun. It is pretty sweet. What is it called again?
A blunderbuss.
Oh.
Now, he says, Childermass does something here that I'm like, really weird. He says,
I love it.
Remember this. There's less to this lady than meets the eye. And he holds up his hand, and he's got the finger there. Now,
he's got the finger missing.
Right, he's got the finger missing, but he doesn't really know anything, Childermass.
No, he doesn't, but I pointed this out when she first lost her finger back in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
That has got to be the most unnatural thing ever, to have that clean a cut. And
it's freaky looking.
Yeah, it's freaky looking. And so I think Childermass, he knows something's up. He wants to figure out what it was.
Right.
Childermass, we could have him in season 3 of True Detective. He is going to get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
All right. And so because of that, Lady Pole warms. They even take the straps and they're not worried about her hurting herself anymore. They take the straps off.
But then she says something interesting that Secundus picks up on.
Yeah. She's like, because Stephen says, hey, I've got to go back to Sir Walter's house. And she's like, why say goodbye when we're going to be together in a couple hours? Whoa.
And that raises the hackles on Mrs. Secundus.
Yeah, it sure does. And so but before we get to that scene, we find out Lascelles and Norrell are reading this review. We're cutting back and forth to where Jonathan Strange realizes he has to go.
I have to say, though, it's the politest bad review I've ever heard in my life.
I don't know. He calls it constipated. That's not cool. Dull. And about the blinkered, it's like my aunt wrote it, the Norrellite. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with the Norrellite position of magic?
Right. But he is saying, what? Let's have some wonder. Let's have some awe. Why did it have to be such a snooze fest? And you know what I would have said? Where are those beacons?
Well, you're not supposed. You don't want the enemy to see them. Oh my God! This is just. What do you think of Jonathan Strange?
And he does mention the Raven King, and so he's pubbing up the Raven King. So and Norrell is basically like, rats. Right.
This is just. I think.
This is where a scene's missing because we find out later. Yeah. That Lascelles...
We cut to... Lascelles is screaming bloody murder because he realizes what this will do to the sales of his book. But we cut straight to the meeting. And to me, this is just another great scene in a great episode between the two of them.
And like you, this is the first time I felt for Mr. Norrell.
He's so sad. He's so lonely. He's trying anything. He's, he didn't chew him out like Lascelles would have done. And like maybe people's first reaction, if somebody attacks your book, something you spent a lot of time working on.
Well, considering the attitude he's had several other times throughout, he does not react. I mean, my God, he's yelling at Childermass for stopping a bullet for him. And here, this guy has just ripped him to shreds.
I know.
In the most politest way possible, as I say.
He is so... Norrell is so sad. He's like... who will you talk to? You realize just how lonely Norrell is. And Norrell, he's trying anything to do it. He's trying to smile. Norrell doesn't smile much, and it's like, oh.
Well, here's another opportunity, too, because I don't know, because he's giving Strange an opportunity to be like a partner.
Right.
Now, why doesn't Strange take it?
I think Strange...
I guess at this point he said, I'm just outie.
Right. It's like, be a partner, but be a partner where we don't do Raven King type stuff. And Strange wants to follow in the Raven King's footsteps. And so... Right. Oh, this is just a painful scene. Look at the pain in Marzin's eyes. This guy, both these guys, I don't want to, they're all great. Is there anybody who, let's step away from this scene. Anybody who's acting... you think isn't up to snuff, or is everybody uniformly great in this?
I think everyone's great. Although again, I will say, and I don't know if it's the direction or just the way it is. I feel like I could have a better handle on what Stephen is going through.
Yeah, well, that is probably the trickiest scene to play, don't you?
Again, I don't know, but I still kind of don't know what they're going for. He doesn't. Right. But
I think he's good though. I think he's
no. I think he's good, but it still feels like. I guess it's okay if what he's going for is sort of this kind of emptiness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, completely. Oh God, we've been talking, and this scene has been going, and just seeing the look on Mr. Norrell's face. This is just, he can't take it. So now let's get back to where you were saying.
Yeah, I jumped ahead.
Stare across. No, I did too, because the scenes, this is well edited show. It keeps it moving by jumping back and forth, and so Secundus is following Stephen out the door, and Secundus. We saw it when he first arrived at Staircross, where he entered Jonathan Strange's dream. And now here, he can tell there's magic going on between Lady Pole and Stephen. Mm-hmm. And it's at their mouths. So he can even tell, I'm not sure he knows that it's preventing them from speaking and saying what could happen.
And again, Stephen goes away kind of scared, and I still don't understand that, like...
Well, wouldn't you be scared of the gentleman with thistle-down hair? I think Stephen's best acting is what's about to happen, and I think a great effective bit of directing. We talk about the acting, talk about the writing. There's a great bit of directing where Stephen is like, I got to get away because who might hate this. And sure enough, he opens the door, and who is there with a grin on his face? the gentleman with thistle-down hair. Oh, that is a wonderful reveal. And I imagine that John Segundis can't see him. But,
no, he didn't.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so, hey, we've been advertising a lot of beers. We had Stella Artois. We had, I think, didn't we have Budweiser, Bud Light in this? Now we got Blue Moon beer. They want to advertise to a lot of people. Now, Little Murray, you're not allowed to pitch. You are not allowed to pitch beer. But was there a commercial in this commercial break that you liked?
Well, not Blue Moon.
Oh.
But the shot on the iPhone 6, those were pretty cool. Just watching them.
No, I agree. Yeah, those are nice.
This lady there's this lovely.
Yeah, we won't even talk about what that medicine's for. Okay.
Some Last Kingdom.
Now this Last Kingdom, does it make you want to watch this show?
Yes, it does look very interesting.
Well, God, every book I read is being made into a TV show. This is based on, in America, they call it the Saxon series. It's by an author, Bernard Cornwell. The book 6 in the series is sitting on my coffee table right now. And so BBC America, even though history has made the Vikings, which is a pretty darn good show.
And you know what? This is interesting because this is a problem that I have because of the way I read.
Right.
What I'll do is I picked up like 3 or 4 of them, and I can read like a book in a couple days.
Yeah.
And what happens is no writer's book stand up to you slamming through 3 of their books in a week. So what happens is I go through 3 and then I'm like, all right, I'm kind of tired of this writer.
No,
but they're well written.
Yeah, they're pretty fun, and they should. It's kind of interesting. I've been looking at IMDb. It feels like they're going to not adapt like one book a season. Like I honestly think they could and should. So hopefully it'll be okay. But
well, how are they going to go about it then? Do you think?
Well, it's interesting because just to set up the very first book, it starts with the main protagonist as a young child, and then he kind of jumps forward after he spends a lot of time with the Vikings. And so, I don't know. It feels like because of that, and because they don't want to build all these sets, the main protagonist gets into all these battles, that they might just pick and choose, okay, we'll do this.
Right.
So
yeah, there was a lot of, when you read a lot of books in a row, you're like, well, there's a lot of him going back and forth.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
Between the two. You're like,
that's why
I get this. I get what's happening here, but it keeps happening over and over again.
That's why I think it'd be better if it was one book a series. But I don't know how it'll be. And I got to be honest, folks, we probably won't podcast about that show.
No, but there are great shows we could podcast about, but instead we're doing The Strain.
Okay, let's jump forward. Any other commercial breaks? Graham Norton, you are sold on it. So Jonathan Strange, he comes home to Arabella, and he's like, look, let's get out of here. We're going to go back home. We're going to leave London. I'm just going to be
I'm just going to write a book.
Right, I'll be a theoretical magician. I won't go on the King's Road anymore. And this is what Arabella, she's relieved. She's so happy. But, of course, the scene begins with a knock on the front door, which is just going to spell the end of this whole thing.
Yeah. It's bad because before when they had their conversation, he was like, I was wrong. She's like, no, but I was wrong too, you know. But here he's like, this is time. We're going to get together. And, of course, we know it's all going to go to hell.
Oh, she's so happy. But sure enough, dang Napoleon, he had to leave, that jerk. Zut Napoleon had to come back.
It seems to me like magic was not effective in this war at all if it happens the same exact way and timing as it happened when there was no magic.
Well, who would believe...
Those damn sea beacons.
Who would believe back then in wars you would find this emperor, Napoleon, who caused all this trouble, and you wouldn't kill him, you just send him to exile on an island where he could escape and come back and cause more trouble.
Right. Now, what I'm curious about is, and obviously it's, you have to do it for the movie, for the book, as in the show, is like, hey, you know what? That's great. I'm super excited. Why don't you just screw off and go to Norrell and have him go? Because I'm not doing it.
Right. Exactly. Hey, that is a great point. But he is the Duke of Wellington's magician. The Duke is asking for him specifically. So maybe back then you wouldn't have a choice? Maybe? I don't know.
Well, probably not. But, if I was a magician, no one forces me to do something I don't want to do.
Oh, right. Right. You've never shown much respect to the Duke of Wellington.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I tell you what, you want to keep me in this room? Just make sure there's nothing reflective in it, because I'm out of yo.
Let's take this great note from the library at Hurtview about Moss Oak.
Wait, are you going to spoil this for me?
No, this is just about the actual Moss Oak. This could be on Wikipedia, to be completely honest. Moss Oak is the preserved wood of ancient trees that flourished in Great Britain perhaps some 5,000 years ago. These great trees flourished and fell, and they were preserved in these peat bogs where the general acidity, how do you say it?
Yeah, acidity, yeah.
Of the soils prevented the nature breaking them down. So they're preserved in these peat bogs.
Oh, so essentially it's like a
5,000-year-old tree.
Right, so it's fossilized, pretty much.
Right, and so the gentleman, he's been saving this handkerchief with Arabella's tears all this time. He drips the tears onto the moss oak.
I mean, basically, they're going to use this like a couple hundred years from now to have an Arabella dinosaur at Jurassic World, right?
Right, Jurassic World. Arabella, the way her eyes close here is so creepy. This faux Arabella, this moss oak version of Arabella.
Yeah. And by the way, if I see it, I'm like, thanks a lot. I really feel like a king when I'm doing your dirty work.
Right.
So
we're a great partnership. Stephen, you get in the bog and pull out this wood.
My question is, why doesn't look here's Arabella? Why don't you just take her?
Man,
with thistle-down hair?
Never accept a substitute. Only the real thing. We'll ruin the magician and give him this fake one made from a tree. And take his wife. And take his wife. And take his wife.
Yeah. And so then we find out the very interesting thing that LaSalle was trying to convince Norrell, and maybe Norrell said yes, okay, that he was going to make him do all these horrible things, which presumably are going to happen now.
Right. He said threats. He's like, Mr. Norrell, you agreed with things. Like, unless he publishes a retraction, we'll be forced to reveal the evil magic he did in the peninsula. Oh, my God.
Yeah. By the way, I think I called that, not like it was tough. If you do magic in front of 40 people and tell them don't say anything, it's going to get out.
Zombies have a way of spreading. And so we end this episode. This is the 4th episode in a row. The previous 3 times we ended on Mr. Norrell just looking like, oh, crap, stuff's getting worse.
Ruh-roh.
But this time he seems to have his call to action. He's like, we've got to destroy Jonathan Strange before he destroys us. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Yes, and so he has a look of, and it's ominous because he's got the light on him. He says, we must work to destroy him before he destroys us.
Yeah, but what he means, or what I think he means, is he's like, we've got to destroy him because if he's messing around with fairy magic, this could be, oh, snap, trouble.
Right, and then what happened quickly was you wouldn't allow me to watch on next week because apparently it was a spoilerific.
Oh yeah, I think in this particular case, I always watch the next on preview, but in this particular case, I really thought it was spoilery.
Now, and to be honest, to tell the truth, you have somehow managed to procure all of the episodes of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
No. I haven't
procure them.
I haven't seen episode 7.
Oh, you have not seen episode 7.
But I have seen episode 5 and 6, and let me tell you.
We're in for a bumpy ride.
Yes, and it's going to get really... If you think... one of the reasons why I'm only trying to stay low is I think some of my ratings may have to go even higher as we go
my goodness.
In the series. Okay, so Catfish, before I get to some of our listener feedback and stuff, I want to say that we always talk about help us spreading the word, help us, get the word out about this podcast, help us get prizes.
Right.
And so on our podcast about the strain, we have a thing called Sturgoy Team 7, which is our listeners who help us spread the word. So I've created a list of some of our respectable magicians who are helping us on Twitter spread the word. And there are almost too many of them. So Catfish, why don't you read some of these great people on Twitter and who've been so helpful in us spreading the word about Lost Hope Podcast.
Okay, it's Maggie at Les Toils 6.
Oh, yeah.
I messed that up. Sean Gregan at Hey Ref.
Hey, Sean.
Romy 134 at The Kindly Boy. Susan at Black Eyed Lily. Tracy at Tracy 2EZ. Jed at Jed and White. Matt Foster at Fat Monster. At My Vogon Poetry.
Great.
A new person.
Great. We love it.
At Glenn Ewing.
Yeah,
Holly
Glenn.
at Hunt Pants. Holly, we feel for you. Stay strong out there, okay? Stay strong, Holly, because we're here for you. Joe at Solitary Joe, at Mo_Ali.
Solitary Joe's great, yeah.
Okay. At Alex Packnadel, at Owen Tromans, at our old friend DJ Tim Hines with two M's,
Tim Hines.
At Hamlet is Dead, at Hats Period, Natasha Patel, at Laren Soil, at Renee Lascala, Nymeria Z, at Nimzy, at Patman23, defending us on the at Geek Girl Soup podcast.
Thank you, Patman.
Brian Winchell, at Nihan Brian, and
in Japan.
at Pierogi Man.
Oh, Pierogi Man. So everybody, thank you so much.
Those are respectable, tolerable, practical magicians.
Hell yeah. Let's get to some of our feedback from this show. And I'll read the first one from our good friend.
Do it.
Romy134, who's at the Kindly Boy. He tweeted, "This whole time, I believe Strange was the one I should be rooting for. Now I'm not so sure." Why do you think he said that after this episode? He even tweeted, he said Mr. Norrell translator, he goes, he tells Childermass, "How dare you save my life and sleep for days? Traitor!" So why do you think
let me just
Romy
say, I
is
think Romy could be a female.
Okay, or she. Why do you think she's feeling for
Mr. You know
Norrell?
what? This is interesting because I predicted this at the beginning because remembering from the book is that at a certain point, I feel like it's going to turn. However, I still feel at this point that I still feel strongly for Mr. Strange. And I'm curious to see how it's only in 3 episodes it's going to turn, because as I say, he has good intentions.
Oh, I don't know. I read the book, and I already said I was on Team Strange the whole book. not sure it has to turn so much. But Mir, why don't you read a tweet from our good friend Holly Huntpants?
Okay. Holly says, "Is it unpatriotic that I'll be watching a BBC show tonight? No, because it's BBC America."
Yeah, she was watching it on the 4th of July.
Yeah,
They had a new episode on the 4th of July.
Because as we all know, BBC America is better than BBC simply because it's shown in America.
We had Pierogi Man who tweeted at us, "This has less violence and profanity, more clothes, and yet he can't wait to see the next episode." So he's talking about our Game of Thrones work. He's like, this Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, less violence, profanity, more clothes, yet he likes it. That's good. Thank you, Pierogi Man. Hey, I love the Twitter handle My Vogan Poetry. That is
my Vogon Poetry. Let's hear it.
Good.
Let's hear some Vogon poetry.
Oh, well, he didn't do it in this tweet. He just said that he loved our podcast and he hopes BBC America knows that the show is better for it. Oh, he wants us to get some prizes. Thank you so much. How about one from our good friend Double M, Matt Murdoch at Podcast Winterfell?
He says, "I give tonight's Strange and Norrell 8.5 creepy mirrors out of 10.
Yeah.
I stole his 8.5.
Ooh.
And why don't you read the last one?
Oh, from Maggie. Maggie. Maggie is almost number one among the respectable magicians. She knows about the contest. She says, "OMG, I want that bell." So Maggie wants to win our bell. She is excited. And so all of you people, all of you respectable magicians, or anybody who gives us new Twitter or iTunes reviews, you are going to be entered into our contest to win the infamous footnote bell. Can you believe?
We really want to give out more prizes, BBC America.
Yeah.
Help us out because you're the better BBC because you're in America. BBC doesn't care.
Right. Maggie also said she gives episode 4 8.9 pieces of moss oak out of 10. Hashtag foreshadowing.
Whoa.
Sean Gregan at Hey Ref, he says he loved Eddie Marzin's metal double take. He gives it 8 missing fingers out of 10. Whoa, pretty good.
Whoa, that is good.
Maggie said the best thing about this episode was the billiard scene, followed by the King's Road. But Solitary Joe said, no, the best thing about this episode was shirtless Childermass. Okay.
Oh, wow, all right. You got to take it.
Excellent. Catfish, we also got 3 new iTunes reviews. Do you want to read
the
first one? The first one's from our good friend Susan, who's at Black Eyed Lily.
All right, this is a must addition to the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell series.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe they'll put us on the extras.
They should.
This podcast is a must listen for anyone watching the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell series on BBC and BBC America.
Thank you.
Bubba and Catfish bring their own sense of humor and their enjoyment of the series to enhance your own.
We don't bring a sense of humor, but our own.
Yes, well, that's all we've got. That's all we can have. In addition, they add lots of good information and interesting interviews with various guests associated with this book and television series. You know what? I want to shout out to you specifically, Bubba.
What do you mean?
Because you have done a lot to make this a value-added podcast. doing some interviews.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Well, I want to do my own.
I want our guests.
I want to do my own personal shout out to you because you're doing all that hard work, skipping meetings at work to make sure that our listeners get some extra added bonus content.
Right. I had to skip a meeting I was supposed to attend to reach Peter Harness. He's in England or Sweden somewhere, and I had to get him. We also got a 5-star review from Fun Feuds on iTunes. He says that, like many others, I enjoy Bubba and Catfish from one of their other awesome podcasts, the Joffrey podcast. As an obsessed Song of Ice and Fire fan, I enjoy listening to their take on the show. When it comes to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I am a NBR, aka non-book reader, and this podcast has really helped me understand what it's going for in each of the episodes. Thank you so much, Fun Feuds. Oh,
absolutely.
So
I love that.
We got a third new review on iTunes from Ed S.
And he says, absolutely tremendous, 5 stars.
Oh, thank you.
Very informative and entertaining podcast. I am just reading the novel and really like that one likes the books and the other doesn't. Great podcast. Thanks. So, you know what, Ed S., check back in with us either on Twitter. You can hit me up at CJGman67. You can hit Bub up at
Fit and Trim, FITTENTRIM, Fit and Trim on Twitter.
So I'm curious to find out after you finish reading it, who you agree with.
Well, at the here's a little foreshadowing for our own podcast. In the final episode of this, as we go through episode 7, at the end of it, I want to talk through: would you tell a friend to read the book or watch the series? Don't answer now. But we'll get to the end. And so people tweeted us and tell us your thoughts on will you tell
Well, they can't do it now either. If I'm not allowed to do it now, they're not allowed to do it now.
Well, you could. That's true. That's true.
Because I already have my answer.
I want you to see all 7 episodes before you write in. So once again, if you give us a review in iTunes, if you tweet at us on Twitter and use the hashtag Lost Hope Podcast,
please don't make Bubba go through people's sad tweets.
You're going to be eligible to win the infamous footnote bell. Now, I don't often check Stitcher, but I promise by episode 7 I'll look to see if there are any reviews on Stitcher as well, because some people get mad if we don't check Stitcher reviews.
No, I know.
And thank
it's
you
like
guys.
when you post an episode review on Stitcher, it's almost like you make it disappear.
Thank you guys so much. I'm certainly not doing this because we like the sound of our own voices. We wanted to do this kind of as an experiment because Catfish didn't enjoy the book. I didn't. I thought it'd make an interesting podcast, and we're having a really fun time watching these shows.
I am a huge fan of this show.
Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us on this silly thing.
And as always, though, before we go, we have to list our Magicians of the Week.
We sure do.
And you had a few nominees. Would you like to go through them again?
I nominated Drawlight first. The first time I nominated him was because he got Mr. Norrell to pronounce his name Norrell the French way, the way he's pronouncing it. The second way, he invented peeping that the gentleman with thistle-down hair did in the picture. So he's one nominee. My other nominee is, of course, Mr. Gatcombe and Mr. Tatney. Mr. Tatney and Mr. Gatcombe, because they got Jonathan Strange so mad that he went through the mirror. And so because I'm generous and want to share it with 2 people, I'm giving it to Gatcombe and Tatney, my Magicians of the Week. How about you, Catfish?
Well, you had it almost right, but for the wrong reasons.
Right. Oh, really?
Yes. The answer is, as always, Mr. Drawlight. And it's because he, even though it seemed to be magical coming through the mirror, his disappearance from the outstretched arms of Jonathan Strange was the best magic done of the week. How he got away from Jonathan Strange
Run away!
is magical.
I always tweet at us, tell us your Magicians of this week for Chapter 4, All the Mirrors of the World. I want to give a special thanks out to our very special guest, Little Murray. Do you want to come in, speak into the microphone, and tell everybody your thoughts on the episode as a whole? Is it for kids or is it for crusty old adults like Bubba and Catfish?
Well, I really enjoyed the show, but not to be offensive to any other kids, but I watch some more mature shows, so this wasn't as bad for me, but I think for other kids it might be worse, and since it's kind of warped.
Well, let me ask you this, because you are a big fan of the Harry Potter movies, and obviously this doesn't have the action of the Harry Potter movies, but it deals in the same world as magic. So for younger fans of the Harry Potter movies, would you suggest this series or not?
Well, for teenagers, I think older, because I think people that are in the younger range wouldn't like this as much and think it's more boring. But I think if you want to watch this because it's related to kind of the magic sort of thing like Harry Potter, I think it's kind of good, but it's a different type of magic, because this magic's like disappearing, not casting.
This is respectable magic. Yes. And Harry Potter was not respectable at all. Not
Ron
respectable.
With his evil red hair, Ron.
Yeah. And
Hermione couldn't control her hair either.
And Hermione always the one rescuing Harry Potter.
Right, hanging with house elves and Cornish fairies, terrible, not respectable magic, Harry Potter. All right, so for our wonderful guest, Little Murray, for my co-host, Catfish, I want to encourage you guys, keep tweeting at us. We love the interactiveness of this show. And you will find us again next week in
Lost Hope.